Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is Advanced English Listening Podcast.
And we have a really incredible deep dive planned for you today.
We really do. But before we get into the sources, I want to ask you a very direct, honest question. Think about this for a second. When was the last time you felt truly calm?
That was a tough one.
Right. And I don't mean just, not stressed or momentarily distracted by a TV show. I mean genuine, deep peace.
The kind where your shoulders actually drop.
Yes, where your shoulders drop, your breathing slows down to this steady rhythm, and your mind finally stops sprinting from one anxious hypothetical to the next.
It's hard to remember, isn't it?
It really is. If you're sitting there struggling to pinpoint the last time you experienced that level of stillness, you are far from alone.
Far from it.
Because we are operating in a modern environment that it never actually powers down.
No. It doesn't. And it's a profound mismatch between our biology and our environment.
Totally. Consider the architecture of just an average day. Our devices are delivering this relentless stream of notifications. Professional expectations have completely bled into our evenings and weekends.
Right. You're expected to be on call all the time.
All the time. And on top of that, we're exposed to this endless digital feed of curated lives, global crises, just fractured information everywhere.
It is exhausting. We are navigating this hyper-accelerated digital world using a nervous system that, it evolved for a much slower hunter-gatherer existence. Our brains are constantly scanning for threats, which was highly adaptive on the savannah when a threat was a literal predator.
But today?
Today, it's disastrous.
Yeah.
Because your brain reacts to an overflowing email inbox with the same fight-or-flight response.
Wow, yeah. So in the middle of all this deafening ambient noise, the concept of inner peace feels almost like a historical artifact, not a realistic daily experience.
Which brings us to the core of our deep dive today. We are looking at a really comprehensive guide that tackles this exact modern crisis.
And what I love about the material we're analyzing today is its dual nature.
Yes. That is the most fascinating part.
It's brilliant. On one hand, it functions as this deeply philosophical, highly practical manual for mental well-being. But simultaneously, it's subtly structured as a resource for advanced English learners.
Right. It treats the mastery of emotional regulation and the mastery of nuanced diplomatic language as overlapping skills.
I've never seen anything quite like it.
It makes perfect sense, though. By learning how to articulate your boundaries and your internal states, clearly using specific vocabulary, you are actually constructing the scaffolding for a more peaceful life.
That interception of language and emotional intelligence is where the real leverage is. So the mission for our discussion today is to dismantle a very pervasive myth.
The escape route myth.
Exactly. I mean, absolutely. Society sells us this narrative that if you want to find tranquility, you have to do something extreme.
Like quit your demanding job.
Sell all your possessions, relocate to an off-grid cabin in the woods.
Or commit to a 3-month silent meditation retreat.
Right. And we are going to unpack why that is a fundamental misunderstanding of what peace actually is.
We'll dissect the foundational pillars of calmness, and then we're going to apply them to 10 highly specific, painfully relatable, everyday scenarios.
Real life stuff. And ultimately, we'll build a practical toolkit for you. The goal is to help you find profound stillness right in the chaotic center of your ordinary life.
But to do that, we first have to fundamentally redefine our terms.
Let's do it.
The framework we're exploring posits something kind of counterintuitive. Peace is not a destination you arrive at after you have solved all your problems.
Which is how most of us view it.
Right. We think, I'll be peaceful when my to-do list is empty. But true peace is actually hidden in the unremarkable, microscopic moments of your day. It exists in the tactile sensation of a warm coffee mug, or the sound of rain against a window, or just noticing the geometry of sunlight on your floorboards.
To visualize this, the source material uses this brilliant physical metaphor of the ocean.
The ocean is the perfect proxy for the human mind.
I've always found it striking because it deals with the physics of turbulence. Think about the surface of the ocean during a severe storm.
It's pure chaos.
Total chaos. You've got 30-foot waves, gale force winds, massive kinetic energy crashing in every possible direction.
And that surface level represents our daily lives.
Yes. The immediate stress of a missed deadline, an argument with your partner, just the sheer friction of existing in society.
But the critical insight is what happens when you move vertically.
That vertical descent changes everything.
If you dive just 50 or 100 feet below that violent surface storm, the water becomes remarkably still.
It's wild to think about.
The kinetic energy of the storm simply doesn't reach those depths. The deep water remains completely undisturbed, regardless of the weather above.
And true inner peace operates on that exact same principle. It is a state of mind and an emotional calmness that you cultivate beneath the surface of your circumstances.
Cultivating this depth doesn't mean you suddenly become immune to tragedy or frustration or anxiety. The storm on the surface is still going to happen.
People will still disappoint you. Projects are still going to fail.
But underneath that turbulent surface, you maintain this quiet, regulated center that just remains steady.
Which brings us to a major psychological trap we all fall into: conflating peace with happiness.
Oh, this is a big one.
Culturally, we use those words as synonyms, don't we?
We do, but they represent entirely different biological and psychological states. Happiness is an emotion, and the defining characteristic of any emotion is volatility.
It's temporary.
Very temporary.
Yeah.
You experience happiness when external variables align in your favor.
You receive a promotion at work.
Or you eat an incredible meal. Or you go on a fantastic first date.
But because it relies on those external conditions, it's inherently fragile. The moment the day ends or the meal is over, the feeling starts to fade.
Furthermore, happiness is subject to what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill.
Right.
Human beings are incredibly adept at adapting to positive changes, so that new promotion brings a massive spike of happiness. But within 6 months,
It just becomes your new normal.
your new baseline, complete with its own entirely new set of stressors.
You're just running on the treadmill again, chasing the next high. But peace is vastly different. It's a durable condition. It's rooted in presence and acceptance.
A really helpful heuristic the material offers is this. Happiness is the feeling that everything is going perfectly right now. Peace is the quiet conviction that even if everything is falling apart, you are fundamentally still okay.
I love that distinction. But man, that is a highly challenging shift to make. Moving from condition-based emotional states to unconditional presence.
It is. The framework warns heavily against conditional peace.
The if-then mindset.
Spot on. We constantly negotiate with ourselves. We think, I will finally relax when this major project launches.
I will be calm when my bank account reaches this specific number.
It's a moving target. Once you hit the milestone, your brain immediately identifies the next required condition. The finish line is perpetually pushed back.
It's the ultimate illusion of control. You are outsourcing your internal state to variables you cannot predict.
And if we accept that conditions will never be flawless, the only logical conclusion is that peace must be accessed in the present moment, amidst the imperfection.
To navigate this, we really have to look at the vocabulary of our internal world. The phrase state of mind is crucial here.
It refers to the temporary cognitive and emotional lens through which you are viewing reality.
And when you cultivate emotional calmness, you are actively managing that lens. You are deciding not to let a temporary surface storm permanently alter your deep water state of mind.
So the transition from theory to practice requires specific cognitive habits.
This leads us directly into Section 2, the 5 pillars of everyday peace.
These are basically the load-bearing walls of a calm life.
The first pillar is mindfulness. The definition provided is pretty straightforward, paying full attention to the present moment without judgment.
But the actual execution is notoriously difficult.
Why is that? Why is it so hard just to sit here and be present?
It's difficult because it runs contrary to the brain's default mode network.
Ah,
When we are not actively engaged in a highly demanding task, our brains automatically default to mental time travel.
we ruminate on a past conversation, agonizing over what we should have said.
Or we project into the future, attempting to predict and mitigate potential threats. And look, this is an evolutionary survival mechanism. It kept us alive.
But when you spend 80% of your cognitive energy living in a past you cannot alter, or a future that doesn't even exist yet, you completely abandon the present moment.
Mindfulness is simply the mechanism of bringing your attention back to current physical reality.
It's interesting to look at the literal mechanics of the word mindfulness in English. It combines the root word mind with the suffix hoful, meaning full of. We usually think of a peaceful state as emptying the mind, achieving this blank slate where you think of nothing.
But linguistically and practically, it's the exact opposite.
Yes, it's the quality of your mind being completely full of the present moment. Your sensory perception takes up so much bandwidth that there is simply no room left for rumination.
You can practice this while doing something as mundane as eating a simple meal.
Instead of inhaling a sandwich while scrolling through the news,
You actually pay attention to the texture of the bread, the acidity of the mustard, the mechanics of chewing. You anchor yourself in sensory data.
And that sensory anchoring directly supports the second pillar, which is gratitude.
Gratitude often gets dismissed as a superficial wellness trend, but its roots in neuroplasticity are profound.
The human brain has a built-in negativity bias.
We are wired to notice threats, flaws, and dangers, because noticing a tiger was much more critical to your survival than noticing a beautiful sunset.
Right. If you miss the sunset, you're fine. If you miss the tiger, you're dead.
Exactly. So when you practice gratitude, you are deliberately manually overriding that negativity bias.
You're forcing your reticular activating system to scan your environment for positive data.
And consistent practice physically strengthens the neural pathways associated with contentment.
It's crucial to note here that this is not toxic positivity.
No, not at all.
It doesn't require you to pretend that a devastating loss is actually a good thing. It's simply about proportionality.
Life contains profound suffering, but it also contains sunlight, clean water, and the kindness of strangers.
From a language perspective, integrating specific phrases into your daily communication can act as behavioral cues for this.
Like routinely saying, "I appreciate your effort on this," or "It means a lot to me that you took the time."
Using those phrases doesn't just validate the other person, it verbally reinforces your own neural pathways of abundance.
Moving to the third pillar, we encounter what is perhaps the most challenging concept of all: acceptance.
This one is tough because the primary antagonist of peace is resistance.
Resistance is the cognitive friction generated when we refuse to accept reality as it is.
We constantly overlay our expectations onto the world, and when the world doesn't comply, we suffer.
A very specific linguistic trap highlights this friction perfectly: our reliance on the word should.
Oh, the word should is incredibly dangerous when applied to reality.
It really is.
We say things like, the weather should be nicer for my day off, or the traffic shouldn't be this heavy, or my colleague should have known better.
Every time we use should in that context, we're essentially filing a grievance against the universe.
There's a powerful philosophical argument here in the text. When you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time.
I love that quote. If it's raining and you believe it should be sunny, your anger does absolutely nothing to change the barometric pressure.
You're just suffering for no practical gain.
That realization is transformative. And we have to clarify, acceptance does not mean endorsement.
Right. If you're stuck in terrible traffic, acceptance doesn't mean you suddenly enjoy the traffic.
Nor does it mean you become a passive participant in life who allows people to treat you poorly.
Acceptance simply means acknowledging the incontrovertible facts of the present moment without burning your cognitive fuel wishing it were different.
When you stop fighting the reality of the traffic jam, the anger dissipates.
Yeah.
You reclaim that wasted energy.
Which you can then redirect into something productive, like listening to an educational deep dive or simply observing your surroundings.
And that reclamation of energy allows us to engage with the fourth pillar, slowing down.
We are embedded in a culture that venerates velocity.
We equate speed with importance and busyness with moral virtue.
If you're not constantly rushing, the subtle societal implication is that you are falling behind. But speed blurs the details of your life.
The framework champions the creation of what it calls margins.
I really resonated with this. Instead of engineering a daily schedule where meetings and tasks are stacked back to back with zero breathing room,
You intentionally build in a 10-minute void between obligations.
those margins act as cognitive shock absorbers. Without them, the stress of one task bleeds directly into the next.
Furthermore, slowing down requires the total abandonment of multitasking.
Which is a myth anyway.
It's a complete cognitive illusion. The human brain cannot focus on two high-level cognitive tasks simultaneously.
What it actually does is rapid task switching.
Right. And this constant shifting drains your executive function, spikes your cortisol, and just leaves you exhausted.
Single tasking, committing your full attention to one email, one conversation, or one chore at a time is a radical deceleration.
And that deceleration is what makes the fifth pillar possible: connection.
You cannot deeply connect with another human being if you are mentally task switching.
True connection requires absolute presence.
It means setting the smartphone face down on the table, maintaining eye contact, and listening to understand rather than just listening to formulate your next reply.
When you ask someone, "How are you doing?" and you actually hold the space for a real answer instead of the obligatory "I'm fine."
You create a moment of profound relational peace.
So these five pillars: mindfulness, gratitude, acceptance, slowing down, and connection. They are highly logical in theory.
But theory is fragile.
It shatters the moment you encounter the friction of a real Tuesday morning.
Absolutely. The true value of this framework is how it operationalizes these pillars into the most frustrating, mundane scenarios we all face.
Let's transition into section 3 and pressure test these concepts against reality, starting with scenario 1, the morning rush.
We are all intimately familiar with this sequence. The alarm blares, and before your eyes are even fully open, you reach for your smartphone.
A terrible habit.
You see an urgent email from your boss, a distressing news headline, 3 unread text messages. Then you realize you slept through your first alarm.
So you jump out of bed.
Take a frantic 5-minute shower, burn your toast, sprint to your car. Before you have even spoken a single word out loud, your internal state is at a baseline of panic.
From a physiological standpoint, that sequence is catastrophic.
Break that down for us. What's happening in the body?
Right when you wake up, your body experiences a natural increase in cortisol known as the cortisol awakening response. It's meant to make you alert.
Right.
But when you immediately expose yourself to the stress of your inbox and the rush of being late, you hyperactivate the autonomic nervous system.
You signal to your brain that you are under immediate threat.
Your heart rate elevates, your digestion slows down. If you start your day in a state of hyperarousal, you will spend the next 8 hours reacting to everything from a place of defensiveness.
It sets the tone for the entire day. The proposed alternative requires a deliberate boundary.
What if you set your alarm just 15 minutes earlier?
And you don't use that time to check emails. You wake up, leave the phone on the nightstand, and just lie still.
You take several deep, diaphragmatic breaths. You physically feel the texture of the blankets.
You make your coffee and actually watch the water mix with the grounds. You give your nervous system a gentle ramp-up period instead of a violent jolt.
The linguistic framework provides excellent tools for protecting this time. You can communicate your boundaries diplomatically.
Phrases like, I prefer to start my day slowly, or I make it a rule not to check my phone first thing in the morning.
Saying that sets clear expectations with colleagues and friends without being confrontational.
So once you navigate the morning, you inevitably face the commute. Scenario 2 is the classic transit nightmare.
You are trapped in gridlock traffic or compressed into a crowded subway car.
You're hemmed in by strangers, the noise is grating, and you can feel your blood pressure rising. The biological urge is to become agitated, to grip the steering wheel and mentally curse the situation.
This is where the pillar of acceptance becomes crucial. You have zero control over the city's infrastructure or the volume of commuters.
The frustration comes from feeling trapped.
But you can entirely shift your locus of control. You cannot control the physical space, but you have absolute sovereignty over your cognitive space.
If you reframe that hour not as a prison sentence you must endure, but as a protected pocket of space between the demands of your home and the demands of your workplace, the psychological dynamic flips entirely.
It becomes a sanctuary of unstructured time.
You can utilize that time to listen to a complex audiobook, learn a new language, or simply practice the art of sitting quietly with your own thoughts.
When you transition your internal narrative from this commute is wasting my life to this commute is an opportunity for solitary enrichment, you neutralize the stress response.
You are effectively taking your power back from the traffic jam. I think that's so empowering.
It really is. So you arrive at the office, hopefully with a regulated nervous system, which you will absolutely need for scenario 3.
The difficult conversation?
Let's say your manager calls you into a meeting and delivers highly critical feedback on a project you spent weeks developing.
Ouch. Your immediate visceral reaction is going to be a spike in adrenaline. Your chest tightens, your face flushes.
The ego steps in and demands that you defend yourself, argue the points, point out your manager's flaws, or perhaps you just freeze and shut down entirely.
That physiological reaction is known as an amygdala hijack, right?
Yes, the emotional center of your brain overrides the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logical reasoning.
In that moment, your brain perceives critical feedback as a literal threat to your survival.
If you speak while in the grip of an amygdala hijack, you will almost certainly escalate the conflict, damage the relationship, and destroy your own inner peace.
The most critical intervention here is the power of the pause.
The pause is everything.
Before you open your mouth to formulate a defense, you force yourself to take one deep, undetectable breath. You remind yourself that feedback is just data.
It's not an indictment of your worth as a human being.
And here is where the advanced English phrases act as an emergency brake. Instead of snapping back, You deploy highly diplomatic language.
You say, I appreciate you sharing that feedback with me.
Or if you're feeling overwhelmed, you say, there is a lot to process here. Let me take some time to reflect on that before I respond.
Those phrases are incredibly strategic. First, they de-escalate the tension because they demonstrate that you are listening, not fighting.
Second, they protect your boundaries by not forcing you to agree with the criticism immediately.
And most importantly, they buy you time. They allow that initial surge of adrenaline to dissipate so you can process the information objectively.
It is a masterclass in emotional intelligence functioning through linguistic restraint. It's so practical. Okay, so we have successfully managed the workday. Now we cross the threshold back into our personal lives, bringing us to section 4, evening rest and relationships.
Scenario 4 tackles the modern epidemic of the evening scroll.
You walk through your front door, utterly depleted from the day's cognitive load. The path of least resistance is to collapse onto the sofa and open a social media app.
You intend to look for 5 minutes, but suddenly 2 hours have evaporated.
You have absorbed hundreds of fragmented videos, polarizing news stories, and images of people living seemingly perfect lives.
And when you finally lock the screen, you feel lethargic, vaguely anxious, and inadequate.
That lethargy isn't an accident. It is the result of profound neurological manipulation.
Social media algorithms are not optimized for your psychological peace. They are optimized for engagement and time on site.
They employ the exact same variable ratio reinforcement schedules used in casino slot machines.
You pull the lever or swipe the screen, and you occasionally get a hit of dopamine in the form of an entertaining video or a notification.
This intermittent reward system is highly addictive. It drains your remaining executive function while simultaneously triggering social comparison.
The friction to stop scrolling is so high because your ego is already depleted from making decisions all day.
So the proposed solution is to introduce a physical barrier, a digital detox boundary.
You decide that after a certain hour, the phone is placed on a charger in a completely different room.
By removing the device from your physical proximity, you eliminate the subconscious temptation to check it. You reclaim those 2 hours for activities that actually replenish your central nervous system.
Reading a physical book, engaging in a hobby, or simply sitting on the porch.
To maintain this boundary, you may need to navigate the expectations of friends or family who expect instantaneous replies.
The framework suggests utilizing polite but firm communicative phrases. Telling a friend, I've started a digital detox in the evenings to help me sleep, so I might not reply until morning.
It manages their expectations without requiring you to apologize for prioritizing your mental health.
This discussion of rest naturally transitions into scenario 5, which exposes a deep societal neurosis. The rainy Sunday.
Oh, I relate to this one so much. You wake up on the weekend and your planned outdoor activities are thwarted by a massive storm. Your calendar is suddenly completely blank.
For a significant portion of the population, an empty calendar induces low-grade panic.
We feel a profound sense of guilt. We pace around the house thinking we should be organizing the garage or getting ahead on work emails or doing anything productive.
That guilt is a symptom of internalized capitalism. We have been conditioned since childhood to measure our inherent worth by our output.
We view time purely as an economic resource to be optimized. When we are not producing, achieving, or improving, we feel we are failing.
The framework invites us to fundamentally reframe the rainy day. What if the canceled plans are not a loss, but a vital biological necessity?
Rest is not a moral failing. It is a physiological requirement. If we look at the natural world, nothing blooms all year round. There are periods of dormancy.
The peaceful alternative is to lean into the emptiness. You light a fire, you pull a blanket over your legs, and you give yourself radical, uncompromising permission to do absolutely nothing.
You reframe the weather from a ruined plan to a universe-mandated pause.
You can articulate this shift by saying, I'm having a lazy day today, and it is exactly what I need.
Claiming the rest without apologizing for it is profoundly liberating.
This same mindfulness must be applied to the unavoidable obligations of maintaining a life, such as scenario 6, cooking a meal.
For many, cooking at the end of a long day is viewed as a tedious obstacle standing between them and relaxation.
The mind is entirely detached from the body. You chop onions mechanically while your brain is rehearsing a presentation for tomorrow.
You eat the food without truly tasting the complex flavors.
But you can completely alter that experience by utilizing the sensory anchoring we discussed earlier. You choose to turn cooking into an active meditation.
When you wash the produce, you focus entirely on the sensation of the cold water against your skin. You observe the vivid colors of the ingredients.
you tune your hearing to the specific sound of garlic sizzling in olive oil.
By forcing your attention into the hyper-specific physical reality of the kitchen, you effectively lock out the anxieties of the past and future. It transforms a domestic chore into a daily ritual of presence.
As we move from solitary tasks to interpersonal dynamics, we arrive at scenario 7, a disagreement with a loved one.
Conflict in intimate relationships is inevitable, but the way we handle that conflict determines our baseline of peace.
Imagine an argument escalating. Voices are raised, defensive postures are taken. The ego treats the disagreement as a zero-sum game.
For you to win, the other person must lose. You feel an overwhelming, burning desire to prove that your memory of the event is correct and they are fundamentally wrong.
In that moment, being right feels like the most important thing in the world.
But the framework asks a piercing question. Would you rather be right, or would you rather be at peace?
The underlying psychology of most domestic arguments is rarely about the surface topic. You aren't really arguing about who forgot to run the dishwasher.
You are arguing because one person feels undervalued, unseen, or disrespected.
If you can recognize that underlying emotional current, you can change your tactic. You intentionally lower the volume and cadence of your voice, not to be condescending, but to physiologically signal safety to the other person.
That is where the power of validation comes in, and validation is not agreement.
You can completely disagree with your partner's assessment of a situation while still validating their emotional experience of it.
Using a phrase like, "I understand why you are frustrated and I see where you're coming from," works like a pressure release valve.
But the most powerful diplomatic tool provided is the phrase, "We don't have to agree on the details, but I completely respect your perspective."
That sentence is a psychological safe harbor. It allows the other person's ego to disengage from the battle because they finally feel heard.
Once the ego disengages, the anger evaporates, and true conflict resolution can begin.
It is truly a masterclass in relational maturity. Now, let's look at the microscopic frictions of existing in society with scenarios 8 and 9, waiting in line and taking an ordinary walk.
You are at the pharmacy, the line stretches down the aisle, and the person at the register is attempting to pay with a complicated mixture of coupons and loose change.
Your jaw clenches. You shift your weight from foot to foot, sighing audibly, radiating impatience. You pull out your phone just to escape the sheer boredom of waiting.
Impatience is fundamentally a refusal to accept the speed of time. It is a demand that reality accelerates to meet your preference.
When we are forced to wait, we are stripped of our distractions and confronted with ourselves, which many people find deeply uncomfortable.
The peaceful practice is to view the long line not as an inconvenience, but as a rare moment where society demands absolutely nothing of you.
You cannot work, you cannot run errands, you can only stand. If you keep your phone in your pocket, you can practice observational mindfulness.
You notice the hum of the fluorescent lights, the typography on the magazine covers, the posture of the people around you.
You realize that the irritation is entirely self-generated.
The same principle applies to taking a walk in your own neighborhood. Most of us walk our familiar routes on autopilot.
We have traversed the same sidewalks so many times that our brains no longer process the visual data. We are effectively sleepwalking, lost in our own internal monologues.
The antidote is to artificially manufacture novelty. You walk out your front door and pretend you are an investigative journalist or tourist seeing the street for the very first time.
You intentionally look up past the eye line to see the architectural details of the buildings. You observe the specific way a tree's roots have buckled the concrete.
You listen for the ambient sounds. As the framework eloquently notes, the birds have been singing every single day. You simply haven't been listening.
Manufacturing that novelty forces neuroplasticity. It pulls you out of the default mode network and anchors you in a living, breathing ecosystem.
Which brings us to the culmination of our deep dive in Section 5, the deeper understanding.
We have discussed the theories and navigated the specific scenarios, but we must address the long-term trajectory.
There is a danger in consuming this kind of material, a false expectation that if you execute these strategies, you will achieve a permanent state of unshakable zen.
That is the perfectionism trap. You are going to practice all of these pillars, and next Tuesday, you are still going to lose your temper in traffic. You are still going to feel a wave of anxiety before a big meeting.
The goal of this framework is not the eradication of negative emotions. Eradicating anger or sadness is biologically impossible and psychologically unhealthy.
The goal is to fundamentally change your relationship with those emotions when they inevitably arise.
A profound analogy is offered to illustrate this relationship. Imagine your consciousness is the vast, infinite expanse of the sky.
The emotions you experience, the sudden spike of jealousy, the heavy fog of sadness, the sharp lightning of anger, are simply weather patterns moving across that sky.
They form, they pass through, and they dissipate. The suffering occurs when you forget that you are the sky and start believing that you are the storm.
When anxiety arises, you do not have to forcefully repress it, nor do you have to grab onto it and let it dictate your behavior. You can simply observe it.
You can say to yourself, I'm experiencing a wave of anxiety right now, and watch it drift across your internal horizon until it passes.
That observational distance is incredibly liberating, and it allows us to benefit from the concept of the compound effect.
In finance, compounding interest means small, consistent deposits grow exponentially over decades. The exact same principle applies to neurobiology and inner peace.
Taking 3 deep breaths before you open your laptop doesn't instantly solve your life's problems. Choosing to genuinely listen to your spouse for 5 minutes without looking at a screen doesn't fix every marital issue.
But these micro moments are deposits. They're literal deposits into the structural integrity of your brain.
Every time you choose presence over distraction or acceptance over resistance, you are thickening the myelin sheath around the neural pathways of calm.
Over months and years, your brain's default baseline gradually shifts. You realize one day that a crisis that would have sent you into a panic attack 3 years ago now barely elevates your heart rate.
You didn't experience a sudden epiphany, you compounded your peace through thousands of unremarkable, tiny choices.
But the entire system collapses without the foundational bedrock of self-compassion.
We all possess an inner critic, a voice in our head that monitors our behavior. For any people, that voice is brutal, relentless, and abusive.
When you make a minor mistake, the voice immediately escalates to character assassination. You are so stupid. Why can't you ever get anything right? Everyone else is managing their lives perfectly, and you are a complete disaster.
It is a fascinating psychological paradox. If a friend came to you in tears, having made a significant error at work, you would never speak to them the way your inner critic speaks to you.
You would exhibit profound empathy. You would put a hand on their shoulder and offer perspective.
Self-compassion is simply the radical act of turning that exact same empathy inward. It is recognizing that your own suffering and your own mistakes are part of the shared human experience.
The thought experiment of treating yourself like a friend is highly effective. When the harsh narrative begins, you interrupt it. You deploy phrases of grace toward yourself.
You say internally, I am going through a really difficult period right now and I'm doing the best I can, or making a mistake does not mean I am a failure, it is simply how learning occurs.
By actively replacing the abusive narrative with a compassionate one, you remove the internal friction that destroys peace.
To ensure these concepts translate into daily reality, the framework concludes with a highly structured, pragmatic toolkit.
It is a daily architecture divided into 3 phases: morning, day, and evening.
The morning phase requires only 5 to 10 minutes. It involves protecting your cognitive space by delaying phone usage.
It incorporates a brief breathing exercise, such as inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4, and exhaling for 6, to manually signal safety to your nervous system.
Finally, it involves setting a single intentional word for the day, such as patience or focus, to act as a behavioral compass.
During the day phase, the toolkit focuses on micro-interventions. It advises taking a deliberate 30-second pause when transitioning between completely different tasks.
It encourages strict single tasking during deep work. It also suggests doing a sensory check-in every few hours, simply noticing one aesthetically pleasing thing in your environment. The architecture of a building or the color of a leaf.
The evening phase is designed for psychological closure. It recommends establishing a screen-free buffer 30 minutes before sleep to allow melatonin levels to rise naturally.
It involves a mental review where you identify one positive interaction from the day. Most importantly, it requires a definitive release of your responsibilities.
You internally declare, today is done. I have done the best I could with the resources I had. Tomorrow will take care of itself.
You follow this with a progressive muscle relaxation, a body scan from the toes to the head, physically releasing the residual tension stored in your muscles.
It is a masterfully designed routine because it doesn't require hours of free time. It only requires intention.
To pull all these threads together, the external world is not going to change its nature. The global economy will remain fast-paced, digital communication will continue to demand our attention, and human beings will remain endlessly complicated.
If you wait for the world to calm down before you allow yourself to feel peaceful, you will be waiting until the end of your life.
The locus of control is entirely internal. Peace is available to you right now, hidden in the mundane rhythm of your breathing and the ordinary moments of your day. You just have to make the gentle, repeated choice to pay attention.
That synthesis captures the essence perfectly. As we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
It builds on our extensive discussion of reframing frustration. We talked about finding acceptance in a long grocery line or during a rainy weekend. But consider an even more modern friction. What if tomorrow you are in the middle of a highly important task and your internet router completely dies?
Instant panic.
Or you are navigating a new city and your phone battery drops to 0, your biological instinct will be pure panic and intense frustration. You will treat it as an emergency to be solved immediately.
Naturally.
But what if you chose, in that exact second, to view the technological failure as a mandatory, universe-mandated invitation to practice your peace? What if the exact things that unexpectedly interrupt your busy life are actually the moments you are meant to start truly living it?
That is an incredibly challenging yet beautiful shift in perspective. The interruption is not blocking your path. The interruption is the path.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of a calmer life. We hope you found these insights and linguistic tools valuable. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you never miss our future discussions. We will see you next time. Until then, take a deep breath and find a little peace in your day.